everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Inc. I have a fabulous guest with me today. Should I say a foxy guest? Miss Judy
I love
Fox.
that.
Welcome to the show.
I'm officially wearing my fox necklace. I have fox rock style ears, and I even have my ears if you need them, just in case.
Love the ears. Definitely a great gimmick goes a long way. That's how I recognize you at all the different speaking events and conferences. And I wish I had some cool ears. Maybe I'll have to think of that. What would be the Allie Bloyd ear style?
I don't know.
So
That would be fun. That would be a fun picture for us to take.
For sure. So, Judy, excited to have you here. For those of you who do not know Judy, why don't you give the audience some background on who you are, what you do, bring us up to the present in your career?
All right, I'm going to try and fast forward. I've had a 20 plus long career, and I started in chemical engineering back in the 90s.
Wow.
So I am 47 years old. Like a lot of people don't
I'm
realize
sorry, but
that.
you look
That's
fabulous. Never, not that 47 is old, but when you just said that, I'm like, how is that possible? You look incredible. Definitely. I'm like thinking
I
early
think
30s. So you're
it's
doing something right.
when you really think about it, all the choices you make do add up over the years. I do think genetics now we're getting sidetracked into,
Yeah.
"Wait, how do
Hey,
I
it's
look
an
young?"
always an
But
interesting conversation, though.
I will say this actually leads into business. You can make anything turn into business, but what it really
For sure.
comes down to is small actions will always add up in your skincare and in your strategy online, everything, and your networking. All the small actions will always add up. So, there,
So
that's our
true.
first tip of the day.
Yeah, love it, love it.
Yeah, so I started off in chemical engineering, which I didn't have the internet back then. There was no Instagram in 1999 when I graduated college, so I went to work at a gypsum mine making sheetrock, which is such an interesting
Okay.
path to get all the way where I am, but I then worked my way up into management. I was on what is considered the C-suite track for a Fortune 500 company. So I received a ton of business management training. I then went and got my business degree in environmental management and business sustainability. And that's the degree that I lean on now for why I do what I do. So fast forward all the way through my career, I went through layoffs in 2008. I went through looking for jobs on LinkedIn. I joined LinkedIn 2009 because I said the best way I'm going to network is use LinkedIn. So I just went all in 2009, which is amazing that I did that. And around fast forward through ups and downs, losing jobs, winning jobs, getting opportunities, I got all the way to 2018, and that's when I launched my LinkedIn Business Accelerator. I'd had so many people ask me, how did I launch? And I forgot to mention this. I launched my own environmental consulting business using LinkedIn. So the first clients that I got all wanted me to teach them how to get engineering and environmental business results like I was getting for myself as a solopreneur running an
So when you
engineering
say
company. So
when you say environmental business results, what exactly do you mean by that? Was that the type of industry specifically you're working with, or can elaborate on that a little bit more?
that was the first industry that I ran myself. I
Okay.
myself launched my own consulting business and I was wanting to get certain clients. So I started closing clients like Tesla, Kraft, some major clients that I was
Wow.
working with. And my competition would look at me and say, what is she doing? And how is she networking to opportunities on LinkedIn? So that's when I launched what I call now my LinkedIn Business Accelerator because I leveraged what I built for myself to last, and that's the sustainability piece. There's so many things I could tell you about that journey, but that's the fastest forward as like I put on the 0 to 60 fast as I could go.
Let's reverse just a little bit. So you get on LinkedIn, you're looking for job opportunities. What was it that you were selling to companies like Tesla and Kraft? And how did you decide to start that consulting business in the first place? It sounds like you were there as a job seeker. You ended up becoming a business owner or an entrepreneur, maybe without trying, or maybe you were doing it intentionally, but how did that initial opportunity materialize, and what did that business actually look like?
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it is I look at that choice I made as small actions are gonna add up. That's like the theme of today, but the choice to launch what I ended up calling just Judy Fox Consulting as an umbrella, because I looked out at the world, I saw people in 2008 that I followed. I think it was Marie Forleo. I saw like the world of YouTube launching, and looking back, I wish I got into YouTube, but I did. I got into LinkedIn and I looked at the worlds out there available and I said, I can do two things. I can create one track that launches what I call Judy Fox Consulting, leveraging everything I know within my degree. And that means I can go out and network and have both a CV and a resume, which I know that sounds very interesting, but in that world of business development, in the engineering world, having both means that you can also go out and be a job seeker, but my CV was able to be attached to projects to win projects with companies like Tesla. So I became what I consider maybe a fractional consultant, like a subcontractor, but you have to look and network to those opportunities. And that's how I use LinkedIn to do that. Did that make sense? That was a really niche conversation.
No, it does.
So
When you were working with these companies, what was it that you were actually helping them do?
that is the technical part of the engineering degree that I received, which is navigating permitting and compliance to move a smelter from one location of a Tesla production manufacturing facility to another and getting all those permits in California, the transportation permits. It's a lot of organization and check boxes and compliance, which
Sounds like it.
translates to what I do today. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. I love that you really had the foresight to be able to look at the changing landscape because really those were important years. I feel like in the digital landscape, obviously things had been happening prior to that, but I really feel like those are some of the years that it really took off on a much bigger level. All of these platforms become quite a bit more mainstream, and the fact that you saw the opportunity to get business with companies that were so well known and well established when it sounds like you were still relatively early on in your career, considering what the average person might think a consultant doing business with Tesla, like how long that person would typically be in the industry. I think that's really fascinating. You had done this for yourself. And at what point did you realize that there was an opportunity to then help others? Or were other people coming to you asking you to teach them how to do what you had done?
Yes. So as I was consulting for the technical role that I was in, I started getting pulled into conversations within these companies, the consulting firms that I was partnering with. And they would pull me into another room with their marketing department, their sales department, their business development department. And they were saying, can you tell us how you networked to the opportunities that we're now both benefiting from? So that's the goal is I wasn't just creating a relationship with Tesla by myself. I want to be
Mhm,
clear. It was always a collaboration because me coming to the table as a solopreneur was not necessarily what Tesla wanted to hire, but I created
mhm.
partnerships and contracts and I it was all through networking and all about being in the right place, the right time, showing up, being creative with how you get meetings and getting in front of CEOs or decision makers. And I can talk all about that, but
Yeah,
all of that work is what translated into why the marketing and business development teams and the sales teams ended up wanting to talk to me because they kept looking at me and saying, how is she coming to us and bringing us opportunities to work with Tesla? Because she won it, but she needs us to help work and go through this contract. I was an agency connector,
mhm.
but of course, I got a portion of the pie. So, does that make sense of what I was
It does.
doing? And
Yeah,
they were fascinated by that.
I think it is a very interesting skill set, one that a lot of people I think probably don't seem too aware of. So you obviously had unique skills that other people didn't have. And I think, particularly, if you look at people who I assume are some of the colleagues you're working with in this type of industry, they're probably less on the creative side, maybe in their own way, but sounds very technical, very working with regulations and all these different things. That's not necessarily the creator type of mentality, but you obviously had both of those things together and were able to do something that was relatively unique. So tell us, how did you start to network to achieve some of those opportunities early on? And we'll dive a lot more into the LinkedIn strategy and things like that. In those early days, how were you approaching those different, whether it was C-level executives or CEOs or whoever it was that you were connecting with and facilitating some of those big opportunities?
Yeah, I find it interesting. To me, it reminds me networking on LinkedIn reminds me of it's like an
Mhm.
online golf course is the best analogy that I have. So
Love
it's
that.
not always about me trying to just get a hold of that CEO, but how can I be added to the 4 people headed out to hit golf balls. I don't play golf, so I don't know the lingo, but I understand what it looks like online, and I've played golf enough to be slightly capable of being out there, just don't know the lingo. So, what I would say is the one of the things I look back on as tipping points is leveraging the power of other people adding you to that 4-person golf team. So, instead of me thinking I need to get a hold of the decision maker, who knows and is somewhat connected as a peer to that decision maker. So, I ended up reaching out to a lot of people I even knew from college to let them know I was launching a new business.
Mhm.
Without making it a big production, I just let a few people know, and they connected me to people they thought needed that business and that service. So that's how I started with one of my bigger contracts with an environmental consulting firm wanting me to support their LinkedIn journey. And I was on retainer, like a monthly retainer with them right away, which allowed me to be full time in this business. So that was the thing I needed. I wanted to
Yeah.
see because I'm a single parent. I don't know if I mentioned that. So for me to step out on my own and really lean into this and not be as technical anymore, I needed to have some type of retainer contracts in place.
Yeah, no, I feel very similar in terms of my journey. So I wasn't a single parent, but I was a relatively new parent at the time. And I was making what was at the time for me the most amount of money I'd ever made. It was a relatively tiny amount of money looking back, but it was like my first salary job. And I knew I wanted to start a business, but I was able to translate that employer to a client retain the exact same amount of money that I was making, and it gave me the flexibility and really the confidence to be able to, I think, do the same thing, go full time and not feel like you're really struggling in those early days. So I think there is a great lesson to everyone in that you can make the leap sometimes. Like if you do it intentionally and you are able to find sometimes just that one opportunity that will allow you to have the wiggle room that you need to be able to do bigger and better things. Okay, you've got this initial consulting client on retainer to help them with their LinkedIn journey. What does that LinkedIn journey look like for a company that would be hiring you? What is
So,
it that they're looking to accomplish?
yeah, a lot of times who I end up working with has the language saying, I either we want somebody in our company to be a thought leader. We would like to have their voice elevated. We want to see them on podcasts, on stages, in their niche and in their expertise, not necessarily the public ones we think about, but sometimes
Yeah.
the industry ones that are so
Mhm.
powerful out there. And we don't even see all those niche conferences. So there's that person that comes to me or team that reaches out. And I would say the other category is somebody who is launching some type of physical product or demo where they want to drive traffic and get business. So, for example, somebody who has digital online footprint of courses or that kind of agency or physical digital products. That I feel like those are two slightly different categories, but they
Yep.
both end up working with me. And I guess a third category that reaches out a lot is commercial real estate. They were some of my early adopters, which I
Interesting.
think I I understand why it made
Mhm.
sense that I because I understand construction. Just the concept of
Yeah.
construction and regulatory building construction because of my background, so it really translated to that
Mhm.
industry, which I love. I love seeing that they're still successful and posting and engaging on LinkedIn, and they were my early clients in 2018. But if I
Cool.
can explain my mindset for how I work with them, because I have 4 pillars of what I think really makes somebody a thought leader, if you want me to share that.
Absolutely. So now I have the background on how you got on LinkedIn, how you were able to leverage it. Now you're helping others do this. So I'd love to hear, what is that strategy? You did mention these different groups of people who are utilizing it. Is the approach the same for all of them, or are there different approaches depending on which bucket they fall inside of?
Yeah, I think depending on the bucket you fall inside of, it's how you want to look to your ideal clients. So, if your ideal clients are in the commercial real estate world, you want to look a certain way compared to somebody who's trying to be an influencer in the music industry or somebody trying to sell a digital product. So I do see that difference, but humans are all the same in the sense of what we desire or what we kind of looking from the outside in, what we see on LinkedIn as what is considered a leader in their industry. I think the niche parts of the differences, that's why I work with the pillars so that way I can navigate. We
Hmm.
want the same things. It's just a matter of how do you look to the people to make sure they click through. Like I have a really great client that is in the Salesforce world. And I absolutely love that now she's getting on stages and now she's being asked to speak at Salesforce events, which that was the end result. And it took her about 6 months to a year to get there. So
That's amazing. I love it.
that,
So, yeah, let's
yeah,
talk about
but
the
it
pillars.
changes. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so the pillar one is leadership, and leadership translates to how do you present that you look like a leader on your profile? So, not necessarily in your content strategy, but how do you look when people see what you write and then they go to your profile and they go, oh, that person's a leader. So, that's going to look different for each industry. Some industries are more flashy, some are more buttoned up, little. You might have some personality, but you want to keep it looking like you have a suit on, if that makes sense. The second pillar is strategic networking. How do you get added to that golf course, that online golf course, and make it work so you create parallel relationships, referral relationships? To me, it's not just saying I want to chase after your ideal client because that can look super thirsty on LinkedIn, but you want to like be added with the decision. You want to be at the table. And I love
Mhm.
that, especially when I work with venture capitalists. I love getting them seats at the table. That is such a cool mindset for how you strategically network. The third pillar is visibility. We all have to be somewhat visible, but how do you create content that looks like it belongs in your industry, not just viral content that can push you to be big numbers, but maybe you want to be featured by Forbes. You're going to look a certain way. Maybe you want to be featured by the actual LinkedIn news. You're going to want to look a different way. So I show people how to put on that outfit, that content that makes you look a certain way to the people you want to be seen by. And my fourth pillar is sustainable. So I love, like I mentioned, some of my early clients in 2018, they all have blue badges now. They're top voices on LinkedIn. And I've gotten several over 100,000 followers, which is really exciting to see on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start from the top. When it comes to what the best practices are for your profile, what that profile should reflect. And obviously, there are going to be those nuances depending on the industry that you're in. But what are some of the overarching themes or just general tips that you would give to someone? And I will say, I feel like the marketing industry is such a great industry because there is such a cool mix of the buttoned up type of people, but it's also very fun. Look at you, you wear your ears at the marketing events and we're having luau's at the conferences. And I do feel like it's such a good place to be yourself. But obviously, every industry is a little bit different. So I'm sure there are some significant visual differences in what you might be doing there, but just give us your best tips on profile presentability.
Yes. So I will say there is a balance between making yourself relatable within your professional realm. That's how I like to think of it because I do want people to wear colorful clothing. There's a lawyer that I follow online that she wears really bright pink and she leans into this world of Elle Woods and that you can be legally blonde. And this perception that you have to look a certain way is what I consider to be the creative element, but there's also elements that just make you look professional within that creativity. And I think that's the key where you look like you deliver quality business and services. Even though I might have fox ears on, I pair that with maybe a professional looking top, or there's some thought process through how I think through what I'm putting out into the world with an element of relatability. So when it comes to your profile, I always think it's a balance between creating something, leaning into something you like and you enjoy that makes you relatable, whether it be golf, if you actually play golf, or if you love cars or you are a traveler. It's so powerful to still let us know because we like those after drink moments and hanging out and not being so businessy. Every single industry likes that. I don't care what industry you're in. So that's why I think you can still have that, but then still button it up how businessy you want to look. So the banner image is a great place to express some of your personality. Don't be just stuffy up in the banner. I call it a billboard for your business. You're driving on the highway and on that banner, when we land on your profile, you get such a beautiful image. A picture's worth a thousand words. You're sleeping on a thousand words that you could be telling people in a story in that banner. And at a minimum, tell us to go do something on your profile. Don't just give us the maybe generic, I don't know why I'm mean about this, but the I help statement, anyone can put that up there. So I want to see more of really what you do in a different way because, again, your actions will speak louder than words. So if you do speak on stage, show a picture of yourself on stage. If you on my banner, I got invited into the YouTube studio. So I have a picture of myself in the YouTube studios along with my social proof of my logos of speaking on the stages and features I've had. I actually put together 5 ways you can make your banner sell for you, and it's powerful because that banner should be doing most of the work on your profile. So, there's
Very
one thing
interesting.
you nailed the
Not
banner.
Yeah, definitely not something that I would have thought would have been at the top of the list. Granted, like you said, it really is that largest image, that billboard, that first impression. So it makes total sense from a marketing perspective. What about the content on the profile itself? How frequently should people be updating that? Is that really something that you're going to put that much thought into? Or is it really the imagery around the profile that you feel is the most important thing?
I think people are really drawn to imagery right now. Images are gonna pull them in, and then what you say just needs to support it.
Mm.
So this idea that what you say is gonna make or break everything, I disagree. It's going to just be written to move people to say, "Yes, that's what I want. Yes, I need to start," wherever their funnel starts. If it starts with a demo, if it starts with a call, if it starts with a downloadable, joining their email list, their newsletter, where does it start? Where do you want people to start? Is that
Mm.
clarity you can create on your profile is the number one thing after the banner. How you welcome people. To me, it's just, I have such visual, physical things that I think of. If I had a store and you were gonna walk in my store, is every employee gonna say, "Welcome to Judy Fox Consulting"? What does it look like, and what is the person's experience coming to your profile, their journey? So, yeah, I focus a lot less on what I say, but it's more how I make people feel on my profile. I love the featured section. You get a chance to create clickable links to go places. The top link on my profile LinkedIn gives us now drives a lot of traffic to my email list while I sleep. So every week I get maybe 10 or 20 more people just passively coming into my email list, which is not
Mhm.
huge, but multiply that
Oh,
52 weeks
absolutely.
a year and sometimes it spikes depending on how I do my calls to action. That is a powerful location to leverage. I have a woman who we built out that funnel, and in 3 months, we closed $75,000 for her. So,
Nice.
that is a
That's
really
amazing.
powerful funnel you can build on your profile.
So when it comes to that, going back to the introduction section or the about me section or whatever you want to call it, which honestly I should know exactly what it's called, but I don't remember. But the
I call It's
the
about
main
me.
front,
You're close.
yeah, the about me. So is there a structure that you recommend people utilizing? Is there how much in detail should they be going about what they do and who they serve? Or is this something that should be more about them? Is it about you or is it about your audience or is it about your services or maybe it's a mix of the 3?
I think it's that is where if you had a brochure and you had the front of a brochure that was the banner, so that way you get me to go, "Oh, I wanna go to that attraction, that location." It's
Mhm.
all the details on the inside that sell me on all the features, all who you work with, your social proof. Yes, give me all the details of who you work with, who you serve, what your executive summary is, your bio, your accolades. Why should we hire you? Is where you get that chance to tell us and summarize up your best highlight reel right there. I think keeping it readable, some of the executives I've worked with, I'm just thinking of executives that have board memberships or advisory positions, they will list with a bullet point list some of their advisory positions or the clients they've had and they've worked with. I'm trying to think of other clients. If you don't have that list of who you've worked with, where you're featured, what you have, you also can just share your experience in a bit of a summary section there because we may not get all the way down to the experience section. So if you've had a career of working with different companies or if you've been in corporate, what have you done? We love those the highlight reel. And then the biggest thing I tell people at the bottom of the about me, just tell us what to do next. We all if we've gotten that far, if you want us to go listen to your podcast, tell us to go to your podcast. That's the best way to go next. Tell us where to go because we'll go there. We just need to be told.
Absolutely. So thinking of it in a lot of ways as your own personal ad, and you've got to have your call to action in that ad if you want somebody to take an action. So you're so right. Now, did you say the 3rd pillar was the content? Is that correct?
Yes, that's where I spend a lot more time on ramping up that visibility, and then how do you hold that visibility? Because it's one thing to get it. It's
Mhm.
another thing to maintain it, and that is what
Absolutely.
I have personally focused on versus just trying to play along with what is the algorithm at the moment because the algorithm will change. I always
Mhm.
joke that there's that things you can count on life, death, taxes, and algorithm changes at this point.
You're
4
absolutely
things you
right.
can count on.
Yeah.
So chasing the algorithm will never serve you, but I have not been chasing the algorithm since 2009. What I've
Mhm.
chased is learning how to create relationships and network. And I love that's why I love all the stories you share, Allie, about networking because that's up my alley. I
Yeah.
love all the dots. And there's a Steve Jobs quote that says, I think it's Steve Jobs, where he says, you'll never know how all the dots will connect. You just have to keep making the dots happen because when you look back is when you can see how they all connected. So we're
100%.
making
I look
dots right
back
now, Allie.
for sure. No, I love this too because ironically, LinkedIn was the first social platform I ever used to sell and advertise. That my very
I
first
love
like big
that.
girl position, I was selling a magazine that did not yet exist, a trade magazine, and the company I was with was all about cold calling. That's how they did business. That's how they got advertisers. That was their way. And I had learned about LinkedIn in college. I was on LinkedIn. I was like, I'm going to try this. And it worked fabulously for somebody who'd never sold anything in her life at the time. I was able to have the highest sales of anybody in the company for that magazine. And I created some really cool relationships. People that we met up in different cities and went to conferences together, and a lot of people that were pretty high level business people. So I was 23 years old, and this was in the jewelry industry. So it was a magazine for jewelry store owners. We were selling to jewelry brands. So all of the top fine jewelry brands and these companies that were like suave and sophisticated and some pretty big names. And I was just making connections with them on LinkedIn and getting these pretty big people on the phone, met a lot of them in person, did business with them. And that never would have been possible in really any other format, in my personal opinion. But outside of that, almost every really amazing opportunity I feel like I've had in my life, I can look back and see those dots that have led up to it. And it usually is always a series of relationships. And I think that's the biggest thing people forget about with social media. It really is a good idea to be social. It really is a good idea to actually get to know people because I could be connected with somebody for a long time and not really know that much about what they do, but I'm not there to necessarily try and do business with them. I'm there to engage with them and like the pictures of their dogs or tell them happy birthday or just go back and forth on our posts if we have similar viewpoints or even opposing viewpoints. And then somebody like that reaches out to do business with you and you see how easy it is in a lot of ways to close those deals because that person is already so familiar with you. They already have that trust with you. And I do just feel like, in general, people are so focused on chasing that viral trend or the algorithm, like you mentioned, that they forget that's not actually the point. The point is, if you're doing organic, to be a real human connecting with other humans. And LinkedIn truly is a great place to do that. This is making me want to get back into LinkedIn just talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for this boost of
I
inspiration.
will
So,
support you. I will give you some claps and some comments and all the things. I love
love that.
so many things you just said were amazing because we need to network before we need it. Networking
Yeah.
happens, true networking happens when you don't really need the other person to you don't need them. We feel it
Mhm.
when you it's again, it
Yes.
translates to the golf course. You're not gonna have a good golf game if you're out there pushing yourself and you're ending up hurting all the relationships you're making because they're like, "Ooh, that person is stressed." And you're the
Yes.
one that's like having a really bad golf game. Nobody's gonna ask you back. They
Yeah.
wanna hang with people who are excited to just be there and hang out and enjoy the networking, and it's at a conference. We're gonna feel your vibes if you're at the conference handing us your business card just to get business, and you just say hi for 5 seconds, and you just shove a business card and be like, "Let's do business." And I'm like, "I don't know you." We
Mhm.
all have to know each other, and the higher stakes at play, the more you've got to get to know each other because we're not gonna trust a high ticket, high trust offer with one touch point unless it is
Yeah.
you come beyond recommended, and then there's stakes at play, people's reputation at play to make
Mhm.
that connection.
Yeah, for sure. So when
So
it comes to presenting yourself in the right way, having the visibility that is sustainable, that can withstand any of those algorithmic changes, what type of content strategy do you subscribe to or do you recommend, whether it's for yourself or for the people that you work with?
yes, my favorite thing is when you start having an audience that you're catching attention, you want to do 2 things. Number 1, maintain trust. Trust in your content, trust I hear the word consistent. To me, what you're actually trying to get is trust, because anyone can chase consistency. People can chase posting Tuesday at 9 a.m. That's easy.
Mhm.
Trust is actually what you want to keep, and with that comes how you present yourself online. You're recognizable. You create content in a way that we know that when we engage, it's trustable. You're not just going to go all of a sudden to steer in a different direction. We expect your content to make us look smart for engaging. You've built that trust like that. So I'm always chasing trust versus consistent. So trust could have elements of consistency. That's a part of it, but it's a puzzle piece part. It's not the whole. So I want you to think trust first. So trust in that like button, trust in the see more button for people to click on your see more to say, I want to read the whole post. When people take action, any pushing any buttons on your content, it's signaling trust. They trust that you have something to say. And that's the so if I see that you're holding trust or are you decreasing trust, I'm going to go back to when did you have trust and how do you re get that again? Because you can outlast the algorithm with trust. And then the next thing is your style. There's a lot of ways to make content. There might be up to 14 ways to make posts on LinkedIn right now. You can do a poll post, you can do a document, you can do an image, you can do text only, you can do a video, live, audio. There's so many options, newsletters. Pick. Pick a style, pick one or two types of posts because when you really get good at them, and you're not jerking your audience around, your audience starts to love consuming your advice the way that you put it out. You can always test out pieces, but have an 80-20 rule. 80% of your content just nails how your audience loves seeing you. You may have to test to get there,
Mhm.
but once you find what's working, keep going, lean in hard. So hopefully
What have
that answered your question.
Yes. So what have you seen in terms of those formats? Obviously, I think at the end of the day, probably any of them could work for anyone. But what are the formats that you see perform most consistently or maybe are the easiest for someone to get started with if they have not really been very active on LinkedIn? Is it just a text only post? Is it text with an image? I always think that those are relatively simple, but what are the other formats that get a lot of engagement more naturally or just have the least resistance to be able to create it well?
Yes, and especially for looking like you're a thought leader and you want a seat at the table, what does that look
Mhm.
like? So text with image is very high on that list. I'm gonna give you, like, my top 3. Text with image, the document feature where we can slide through what you've presented, and then I guess the 3rd one. Ooh, it's a toss up, but I feel like I wanna go with short form video. I see a lot of when I say short, 30 seconds, 1 minute max. I've seen a lot of people get what I call top voice by doing even just 1 video post per week. That's it. There is no other post for the rest of the week. Just I see a few top voices that have leveraged that, and it's powerful because they come to expect a video post that's less than a minute and you just mic drop hard in that one video and you don't dilute it. You don't fill us with all this information. What's powerful about LinkedIn is that on your personal brand, that's the place to have, I don't know what to call it. If you're saying too much, we can't hear you.
Mhm.
So slow down how much you're posting in that respect to actually get a top voice. If you need to post more, do it on the company page. I love that. Post as much as you want on the company page because the company can post all the time. A thought leader does not need to look like they have constantly something to say or else they don't have enough business. And you look like you're trying to be a LinkedIn expert. That's
Yes,
why
very
I disagree
interesting.
with some of that advice out there.
That is really unique. So, very different to the advice that someone would hear for something like Instagram or TikTok, particularly. Those seem to be very high volume content platforms where you really want to be posting a lot if you want to stay relevant or try and grow your audience. But you're saying it is more about quality than quantity when it comes to LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yes. And I tell some of my clients, I had a client this year get 1,000,000 views in a month, and that was I dialed them back from doing a post every single day, and I actually said, "Post once a week," and they hated it at first. And that month that they did 1 post a week, they hit 1,000,000 views. And we're talking they went from 1,000 views per month to 1,000,000 views per month. That is mind-blowing and business changing.
And why is that, do you think? Because it really is very counterintuitive. Is it an algorithm thing or is it a perception type of thing? What is that?
My experience with doing that, and I wish I knew my experience with doing it is when you really hit the nail on the head with what your audience wants. So maybe that is testing. Maybe you want to test 2 or 3 times a week. But we had figured out what was gonna go viral. We just knew it based on all the testing we had done. When we came up with that pattern, I said, "Let that one post go because it's going to go really far," and that's when she hit about 2,000 likes, 500 people reposting. Her content was ending up on Twitter, ending up on Facebook, ending up it just spread like wildfire because when you don't cut your content off, LinkedIn will keep pushing it at the top of the news feed if it keeps getting engagement. So yeah, from an algorithm standpoint, I do think that's at play. But the other thing at play is the perception of her getting business is way higher when it looks like you just didn't have time to post all the time. So you saved your best content. So it becomes like that viral Netflix kind of energy of show, or I'm waiting for a new episode to drop on Hulu. I
Mhm.
want the next episode. And that backlog of people wanting your next post is what made the next post do well for her. And then the next post do well. So once you nail what your audience wants, doing 1 or 2 per week makes it sustainable to consume. I think if I was getting a drop of a Netflix show every single day, I might like it for a period, but I might get overwhelmed and be like, "Yeah, I can't watch it every day. Maybe I'll binge it this weekend, maybe." But it
Yeah,
also makes your audience look like they don't have enough time. They have to look like if they're job seeking, if they're trying to get business, they don't have time to comment on you every day or it makes them look bad. It makes them look weird, actually.
that's very interesting. Very
Weird is a
interesting.
harsh word.
Yeah, you know what? But
But if you think about it,
you had mentioned something earlier
what were you
that
gonna
I was
say?
planning on asking you about, and I think it ties into that very well. You said basically that your content, someone has to trust that engaging with it makes them look smart. Okay. That is a very powerful insight. I think it obviously spans far wider than just LinkedIn, but that is not something I have heard anyone mention regarding content, maybe ever, that your content needs to be positioned in a way that makes the person engaging with it look smart. And I think at the end of the day, it's very true because these comments are public to those that are also following this individual or this business or this brand, and that other people will see it and being able to add something relevant to the discussion or something fun or funny or be that comment that gets all of the engagement in the comment section essentially. I think it's a smart observation. And I did not ever think about it in terms of the fact that it seems that everyone's aware of what other people are thinking when they are viewing their engagement. Maybe that's just a LinkedIn thing. Maybe that's happening on all the platforms and I just don't think about it. But that is very unique to say that if somebody is spending a lot of time commenting on other people's posts that it actually could have a negative connotation associated with them. Which I guess would make sense.
If we think about who's on the platform, and I just dial it down to 2 categories, we've got job seekers. They're on the platform, whether
Mhm.
they're job seeking truly now or they're just building their network to job seek in the future. They're
Yeah.
in the business world wanting to make sure that if they ever get laid off, they've been networking. So I applaud them. I love them. Thank
Mhm.
you. And then we have the business world, and the business world could be the recruiters. And then we've got the sales in the business world. So I see that kind of, "Hey, I want business." That could be business like, "I need to get on stage, I need to sell a book, I need to do this." But everyone needs something. And the mindset on LinkedIn to me is we want something to happen at the end of the day, whether it happens now or it happens in a couple months or it happens in a year. We all want a result. And if you keep that in mind, the people who you're asking to like and comment and repost and share and do all that stuff, they do not want to look like they're not already the expert. They have to look like they're joining a conversation. I call it, instead of T-boning just the highway of information on LinkedIn in the newsfeed, that's why that energy of comment below, tell me what you want me to say more of. We don't give a crap. We won't say that because it makes us look like we don't know what we have to
Yeah.
look like we already know. So if you
Yeah.
say something on LinkedIn that says, share what you would add to my advice, share what you think of what we just talked about. That would be a call to action for this podcast, because you could share a list of what we covered or even a mic drop moment. And then you say, what are your thoughts? When you invite people, that's why I'm thinking of calling it like invite to action, not a call to action on LinkedIn. Because we have
Mhm.
to invite people, not they want to be invited to the conversation. They want to be invited to the table, not called to action like they're in the audience and they're getting the mic to ask the person on the stage. They want to be on the
Yeah.
panel with you. That's what they want.
That's a really interesting point. Definitely some content differences on this platform, absolutely, compared to some of the others. On that same note, we talked a little bit about the content formats that are available and what are some of the things that work. What are some of the content topics that tend to do well? Or maybe it's the styles of content in terms of, is it storytelling? Is it sharing solid stats and information? Is it asking for engagement, like sharing that, random thought and then asking for those other people to join in that invite to action, so to speak. So what do you see work
I
well? Like
love
particularly I'm thinking like short form content, for instance. There's a style for TikTok. There's a style for Instagram Reels. Those styles really rely heavily on some of the trending audio and sometimes things that don't have that much substance. Sometimes they do, but do you see people doing just a lot of face to camera short form? Is it text on screen short form? What are some of those more granular content styles that work well for LinkedIn?
Oh, goodness. So I'm gonna give you one more analogy that I recently created. Was it's like an ice cream cone, what we're building. So
Mm.
your content strategy is an ice cream cone. You only have like 3 choices of cone most of the time when you go to get ice cream. So
Yeah.
you've got your waffle cone, your sugar cone, your cake cone. That is your, are you doing a video? Are you doing a newsletter? Are you doing a text with image? You really should only be rotating between about 3, maybe 2 pieces of content. You're gonna have your favorite. I like sugar cones,
Mhm.
so I'm going for, mostly I do text with images. That's like my sugar cone. So I've picked my cone,
Yeah.
and you've gotta pick and you've gotta keep only a few cone types. You got too many cones, we can't start the base. So
Mhm.
that is your base. Your ice cream flavors are how you make the story, how you make us feel. So when you said what kind of topics, that's the ice cream. So that kind of world of career journey, insights, your lessons learned and mistakes, those prompts we hear for storytelling that kind of say, share your list of 10 podcasts you listen to that you love. That's actually what I consider the ice cream.
Mm.
Because those just work on LinkedIn. They're the kind of story topics that we gravitate to. We want to hear your business journey, your mistakes you've made in business, what you've overcome. But you could have 100 of those. You could have a list
Yeah.
of 50. We're all familiar. How many does Baskin Robbins have? Like, I
33.
can't remember the number of flavors.
Mhm.
I love it. But yeah, you could have those and you could just rotate through those. You have your story, but it's less storytelling elements in that point, it's more the topic elements right there.
Mhm.
And then the story elements is where I think you sprinkle it on top. Are you gonna give us the hero's journey? Are you gonna give us the something to celebrate? What is the final sprinkle on top? Are you gonna put some hot fudge on it? Are you gonna put M&Ms? What topping are you gonna put on? Because you don't always have to have that topping on LinkedIn. I think that's where people get a little some mistakes. When I think of stories, I think of you may have to sprinkle on a little intrigue, a little surprise, a little humor. Like those to me are the toppings that you can pick last and decide what direction you really want to take this journey on this post. So if it's a video, you're going to pick video as the cone. I want to talk about a career journey moment, a moment I got promoted and what it was like. Oh, I quit my job. That's the ice cream, and then the element on top is a bit of surprise. I'm gonna be shocking with something I say happened as part of this ice cream cone. Does that analogy make sense? This is the first
It
time I'm
does.
really
Yeah.
sharing that analogy.
No, I like it. I like it a lot. It's good to think in terms of the way that they're layered and they can be mixed and matched. And I definitely think that choose your own adventure type of content selection could always work well. So
Love that.
I honestly have not been spending that much time on LinkedIn lately. And I'm really inspired to start spending more time on LinkedIn after this conversation. In terms of the short form video, do you feel that it's just more organic in nature than some of the other platforms in terms of people aren't doing a lot of styling and editing and things like that? They're just talking to the camera. Is that particularly the style of video you see most commonly on LinkedIn?
Yes, the style that I consider to be the best, easiest style is that feeling that we're either gonna be dropped into the middle of a conversation, and I actually see this style on TikTok, and that translates really well over to LinkedIn, where if you're recording a podcast, out of context, just give it to us and explain it in the comments or explain it in the text part if you need to
Mhm.
explain the context, but give us the video mic drop moment, give us the 1-minute clip that you can grab to get our attention. So that is working really well on LinkedIn. Just give it to us out of context. It's surprising. It's actually a little bit
Yeah,
of that sprinkle on top that goes, "Ooh,
definitely.
wait, what was the rest of the context?" And then the other style is that kind of talk to camera that I see on TikTok. Again, I don't wanna
Mhm.
like or reels, but it's
Yeah.
that feeling that we're on a FaceTime call with you, or that if I had 1 minute in an elevator with an expert and I wanted to ask them a question, you would cut the video of that expert just answering the question. You don't need to qualify what the
Mhm.
person asked, but man, if you had experts just giving us these mic drop elevator answer moments, we soak that up. It's very slightly Gary V style in how we know a question was asked.
Yeah.
It's his answer. And I really think that does well on LinkedIn, just period, end of story. It does well.
Yeah, love that. In terms of a couple of technical questions, hashtags, do they matter? Do they not? Links, do you put links in your posts? Do you put them in the comments? Do you leave them out altogether? What how do some of that algorithm, how does that play into the way that posts perform or how you recommend clients create their posts?
Number 1, I'm gonna go back to trust. If you create a pattern of trust with your links, you can put them anywhere you want. I have had Daniel Roth, who is a senior vice president at LinkedIn, actually comment on my post saying that links work on LinkedIn. And he supported that and he said, "We do not hurt you in the algorithm for putting posts and links in your post. Here's why I think people think they don't work. When you put the link in the comments, you're actually generating the first comment,
Yeah.
which is a huge reason why it supports you thinking that putting the link in the comment made your post work. It's actually you commenting is what made your post
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn loves when you go to the comments and put your link in the comments because they like comments. I will do both. I will sometimes just own my link and put it up at the top. What I do is I control the image that is put with it. You know how when we put a link, sometimes it auto
Yeah.
generates the social icon?
Mhm.
You can swap that out.
Yeah.
Just X out of that and put your own picture. That is the
Uh-huh.
power of doing your own links in the post. or start your own comment section. I do think it's really smart to use your links in the comment, but not because they're going to work in the comments. They're
Yeah.
just,
Mhm.
it kills me when people are like, it's only the links in the comments that work. And I'm like, that's because you started your own comment section.
Some
No
of the
one
other
wants to be the first
platforms
person to comment.
That's true, but some of the other platforms, they actually do deprioritize your content if links are in the body of the post because they wanna keep you on platform longer. So I think that mentality, definitely everybody assumes not allowed to put links anywhere, but that's very interesting. I think it makes sense for LinkedIn because information sharing, professional links to articles, other resources, things like that, it seems like it
Job
should be a
listings.
natural part.
Yeah, most companies want to send you to their website to go apply for the job.
Yep,
That LinkedIn, I do appreciate having and literally going to the LinkedIn headquarters in New York City, which was maybe about, I was there about 6 months ago. They confirmed again in person, doubled down on the fact that they do not decrease your content reach because of your link. And I will double down on saying when people click your link, they also are leaving the platform. So it does make your content do less reach because they
yeah,
can't like and comment if they're over
yes.
here.
Mhm.
So the trick when you do put it in the comments, it does cause people to have to go to the comments, which on their way to the comments, they're more likely to throw you a link.
I
So
think
I
that makes
will
sense.
say the strategy to put it in the comments is still good and it's but not because you're trying to trick the algorithm.
Gotcha. And are hashtags very relevant on LinkedIn? How widely used are they by the average LinkedIn consumer? Does it help content perform any better?
Niche hashtags help you perform better because the ones that are huge at this point are so blown out of proportion that you're gonna be a tiny little blip in that hashtag newsfeed.
Yeah.
And your ability to actually make it onto the main newsfeed is just your it's a drop in a bucket. So, if you circle back to the woman I was mentioning who I got 1,000,000 views in a month, we were using hashtags. Some of the hashtags were only 100 to 500 followers
Wow.
because that you hang in the newsfeed for those 500 people. And if 500 people see you, that's 500 likes and comments potentially. If your content is
Yeah.
good,
Mhm.
you will take over that newsfeed and everyone in that newsfeed is going to see you. So hashtags become their own journey and their own community if you use small ones and leverage those. And my favorite thing is having your own personal hashtag. I have hashtag Fox Rocks, which means the power of doing that is so huge because it means I think I'm at about 1,200 followers on that hashtag, which
Awesome.
means I'm in front of people who have said, I want to see what Judy Fox has to say, or I want to see if Allie makes a post about this and uses hashtag Fox Rocks. It gets you reach in that
Yeah.
community of people when they see, oh, Allie was talking to Judy.
Mhm.
So it becomes like a snowball effect of support for me not having to make postings all the time. It makes me more sustainable and it serves anyone I network with even more.
Love that so much. So much great information here. Definitely enjoyed this combo. I think, again, I'm gonna
I
hop on
enjoyed it too.
LinkedIn later and check it out. I'm gonna get back on my LinkedIn game. Judy, if people are interested in learning more about you, obviously they can go to LinkedIn, hashtag Fox Rocks. Where else can they find you?
My website is the best place to go to all the socials. I have them all listed in a nice, pretty line of logos. So it's judifox.com. It's my name. Is Judi is the key. It's an I, not a Y.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been wonderful. Hope to have you back soon. And thank you all for listening.